Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're joining us from. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in this session today to discuss a really amazing topic, one that is of more and more importance, and is renewable energy in West Africa. As you know, West Africa is a market full of opportunities, and we are here today with three key experts that are going to talk to us today about what is going on there, where are the opportunities, and where is the most gains to be made from. So with me today, Jean-Jacques, tell us, introduce yourself shortly and where are you joining us from? Remember to unmute your microphone. We cannot hear you, Jean-Jacques. Let's try again. I'm afraid not. Maybe it's just maybe unplug your earphones. How about now? No, we can't hear you. Okay, let me just ask Nabil. Nabil, oh, now we can hear you. Hang on. Jean-Jacques, go on. Where are you joining us from? We lost him there. All right, Nabil.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. So, sorry for the technical issue. From Abidjan, I'm managing partner for 5.
So we are definitely having some technical issues. Unfortunately, this happens. We are live. So we're going to wait and see whether we can get back Jean-Jacques. And Nabil, in the meanwhile, I know that you're still there. So can you introduce yourself and where you're joining us from, please?
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you, Balan, for the introduction. My name is Nabil Saimi. I'm joining from Rabat, Morocco. I am managing director of Platinum Power Cameroon and a subsidiary of Platinum Power. I'll be happy to share today.
A company focused on renewable energy.
Okay, we're definitely having issues of delay here with the stuff that he said before. Perhaps we can mute him for now. Excellent. Thank you very much, Nabil. You can now unmute mute the microphone. Adedoyin, can you introduce yourself and where you're joining us from, please?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Adedoyin. I'm the Executive Director of International Support Network for African Development in Nigeria, but I'm currently joining from Milan, Italy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, we have three key experts here today, and the first one up was supposed to be Jean-Jacques. So I'm just going to make sure, Jean-Jacques, are you still here or are you still having technical issues? If you can hear us, okay, we're going to see if we can get him back on. But in the meanwhile, I would ask, actually, Nabil, if you wouldn't mind going ahead so that, we can work on the issues with would you mind sharing your screen, Nabil, and doing the first presentation?
Of course.
Thank you very much. So please share your screen and just let me give you a few reminders. So whilst Nabil is sharing his screen, I'll let you know that actually we are recording this session and we are going to send you a link with the presentations and also the recording so you can watch it. Also, there is a Q&A box at the bottom. Please feel free to send the questions that you have. Okay, we'll try to get them answers at the end. The way this is going to go is Nabil is going to speak, then Jean-Jacques, and then Adedoyin, and then finally we'll do the questions and answers. And also, please share where you're joining us from. It's always cool for us to know, where are people joining from. There is always a lot of countries represented, so please use the chat and tell us where you're coming from. Nabil, go ahead, start talking. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Balan. Can you see my presentation? Is it online?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So again, very happy to be with you today and share some of our thoughts related to renewable development in West Africa. Given the limited time and I'm sure the diversity of participants, we choose to share with you, and I think the spirit is to be very interactive, and I'll be happy to answer any question later on. But just to, as a support of this presentation, just would like to share a brief summary of renewable project developments. not focusing on any specific technology. Why we at Platinum Power believe in very optimistic about development in West Africa. And of course, I'm sharing my contacts if anyone would like to contact me later on and to keep ongoing discussions. So I'll move on if there is no question. I just want to set up the ground and make sure that we are in line with everyone. So just given that I don't know the background of the participant, I just want to make sure that when we talk about renewable projects, actually we mean different type of, we have different type of projects. We have large scale utility projects. That's a perfect example of project that Platinum Power is addressing in North, West, and Central Africa. There is more and more isolated mini-grid projects. And also we have many off-grid projects. I think it's important to distinguish between those categories because each one has its own impetus questions, pro and cons, and especially in West Africa. We are addressing for each of the project, as you probably know, we addressing different kinds of clients or customers. When we address large scale, we are mainly discussing with governments or government-backed utilities. We have also other type of project when we are in mini-grids or off-grid project, we could discuss with have a customer directly industrials or mining companies, for example, that are large. There is a large demand for such projects currently in Africa. We have also commercial customers, but we have, in terms of off-grid project, we have a lot of residential residential customers, and I wanted to distinguish between urban residential and rural residential, which has in completely two different kind of customers. It's, I think, also important to remind that given of the typology of the customers, you'll have different type of what econometric calls the utility functions. So everyone has a different function to optimize or to solve. In terms, we can distinguish between public service issues. Basically, those are problems like that we are trying to solve with the government and government-backed utilities. We have also access to reliability and quality of power, that are those usually main issues from industrials, commercial, and mining, for example. They might have already access to power, but might not be of the quality. It has an impact on their industrial tools. So we work with them to improve the quality of the power. And also purely for residential, for example, and basically everyone is interested in cost reduction. So we, especially in some kind of project, we are purely in a cost model. So dependence on the type of project, the type of clients, and type of issue we're looking to solve, we will find the optimal solution. But I just want to I want to present a brief summary of what it takes to build a bankable renewable project. And some issues will be, this is very general, but I think some areas will be very specific for West Africa, will be very key, like grid access, grid reliability, those issues that we know that's could be problematic in West Africa. So I think as any project business opportunity, we start with business development to initially identify the project, identification, origination of projects, which includes initial due diligence. It should not be like a deep due diligence, but at least to make sure that we are in compliance with the project that we're looking to develop are first and foremost in compliance with our internal vision as a company, the mission and business objective in terms of commercial development and ethics. Also, ethics is important for us as a large-scale utility developer to analyze the institutional, legal, and regulatory framework. Sometimes we are motivated to develop a project, but we end up in a situation in a no-go situation because there is no institutional framework like to develop IPP project or large-scale privately developed projects. And also in terms of budgeting and risk allocation. Once we have done this initial due diligence or screening, I would say, and all the lights are green, I think we can move forward to the pre-feasibility study. We start with a site visit. One recurrent issue, especially for solar and wind projects in Africa, is the availability of resource assessment, like wind data, solar data, which has key components of the evaluation, especially if we are in an IPP scheme. In terms of bankability, I think we cannot recommend enough to start as early as possible by ENS assessments, as this could be ENS stands for environmental and social assessments, to see if there is any major impact of the project on the environment, on the social, on the population, because that could be a showstopper from a bankability perspective. We start also by doing a rough cost benefit estimate, and then we're gonna integrate just to make sure this project could deliver. And then we start with designing an appropriate financial structure, like the first scheme of the financial model, and of course to have our risk clearly identified. And then it's not a risk matrix at this stage, but just a risk identification that we're gonna comment with the development of the project. Again, it's a step-by-step process. Once the pre-feasibility give us all the green lights, we move to next phase, which is a feasibility study. And this is mainly done to manage the risk and expectations of investors, of clients, and to make sure that we're not heavily investing in a project if we don't have those green lights. So on feasibility study, that's where we start really looking at the engineering of the projects, to assess the resources in more details, to have access to either to acquire data or to install measurement stations, being solar or wind or maybe hydro, because we do a lot of at Platinum Power, we do a lot of hydro project that's which is also considered a renewable projects. Starting to hiring the experts advisor if we don't have them internally, and most probably legal advisor, because those are key intervenants in the contractual components of the project. We can also have financial or technical advisor if need be. We need starting also going deeper in the site, starting doing the required surveys in terms of topography, geotechnical, geophysical, if we need to have better understanding of if there is a civil engineering works involved in the project. And then based on this previous information, we have an initial design and engineering schemes that we start using as a background to start our project, which will lead us to develop in more details our financial model to estimate our levelized cost of electricity, which is itself derivative from estimates of the CapEx, OpEx, also the IRR, and different financial requirements for the financial model. But once again, we have green lights for all those components, or at least we have confirmation from internal confirmation, or also with our stakeholders, being government, utility. So all those steps are not done independently. We always recommend to involve the stakeholders involved in the project, either government side, populations, for ENS components, utility for all the design and also the financial model. And then we have the green lights. We can go into more details and in the designing the facility, I would say, or the power plant. That's at the end of the year, and we're looking to develop. We go into more details about the permitting, and we know that could be a big issue, especially in Africa and also in West Africa in particular, where sometimes the permitting process is not clearly determined, or we have many intervenants for the same matter. Again, what I put in the background in orange color is, at the end of the day, what we look into develop or to have is an optimal risk allocation. A successful project starts with an optimal risk allocation. It's not because we have a PPA signed contract or we have a contract, a project allowed to us, it means that you're gonna go forward if we don't integrate all the stakeholders and we make sure that the risk are optimally allocated between the different intervenants. I think it's important to keep in mind this risk allocation, which is the key success factor for any project. Then once we had a detailed design and we are ready to move forward with the contractual and procurement side, I think we have a bench of contracts and documents to be developed, and that's where all the legal, all the advisors need to be in sync, and that's where the role of a sponsor or the project manager is to make sure that everything is in sync between the legal document, the technical document, the financial documents, and that could be energy absorbing a lot of energy. Typical document that we have in this phase, we have PPA, draft grid access project, dispatch agreement with the grid manager. We have environmental and social management plan. We have health and safety issue. We have the EPC, like the construction contract, the O&M contracts. All those need to be either if there is a back-to-back or if there is they need to be in sync. So there is no room for mismatching between those documents. All the bankability of your project depends on how this set of documents are coherent, are in phase with each one of each other. So once we have those set of first contract, which will give you a clear idea about your tariff, about your IRR, you need to go with move forward with the financing components in terms of corporate structure. If it's a project, usually if it's a large scale project, we go with a special purpose vehicle, which is an independently financial vehicle. And then as a new company or as a legal structure, you need a corporate, to set the corporate structure associated with. You need the shareholders agreement, the debt, the financing documentations. If you need to involve, for the debt side, you need sometimes a risk guarantee or also a sovereign guarantee that need to be involved in the financial package. And then again, as I said, usually there is back and forth between the different steps, and depends on which level of maturity of the project is. But this is what, once all the documentation is ready, acceptable by all the lenders and the investors, and all the contractual documents are ready, that's where we have a financial close. And then reaching a financial close, that's I would say it's more than an art than a science, because it depends on the strength of your documentations, the involvement of your financial partners. But as in summary, we can just prepare like a typical structure, institutional financial structure for a large scale project. For example, as I mentioned, the heart of the legal structure is surrounded by a SPV, a special purpose vehicle, or sometimes called SPC for special purpose company. And this is the company that will be holding all the contractual engagement upstream with the investors and with the lenders that you can see on the left side. In terms of investors, we have usually different types of you have a main sponsor that is holding all the risk and holding all the development risk. For some project, we can see directly initiated by 2 co-sponsors, or you have co-sponsors joining, going the road of the project. And sometimes some countries choose to participate or to be involved in the projects. So we imagine that the government usually is a minority shareholders in the special purpose company. In terms of downstreams, in terms of contracts, so we have main contracts, you have the EPC contracts, that's the engineering, procurement and construction contract, which could be either one lump sum contract, or it could be split in different lots, depends on the procurement strategy that we have chosen. And you have also an operation management contract that could be handled either for a short period or a long period, depending on the industrial strategy of the investors. If they want to handle the industrial operation risk or not. Main contract, set of contract to give a life to this project, I would say usually you have the power purchase agreement with the customer. It's either a utility or it's directly the government backed agency. You have usually in large scale project, there is a large involvement of grid. So we need to have strong grid access and dispatch agreement. It depends on each country if it's a large utility or if it's independent transmission system operator or a grid manager. You have also, in terms of legal framework, the project is done under it's a concession that is usually allowed by the government. And regulator, depends on the countries. Not all the countries have a regulator. It's either independent regulator or it's also indirectly associated to the government. To get back to the lending side, because usually this is represent a good chunk of the financing needs to finance the project. You have debt providers that typically involved in West Africa and Africa in general, like development financial institutions. I named the World Bank, African Development Bank, European Development Bank, KfW, French Development Agency, Netherlands FMO, and so on. You have also credit agency, export credit agency. If you know exactly which component is going to be imported, you can get involved with the export credit agencies. Depends on the risk allocation. I think commercial banks are more and more ready to finance renewable energy projects. So usually they check minority finance components of the projects. And then again, depends, we can require it's not a necessity, absolute necessity to have a partial risk insurance or partial risk guarantee. So this is in general structure, does not depend on the technology, but it's mainly applied for large scale utility projects. So to get back to West Africa and why we believe that there is a large room and opportunities in West Africa coming years. In terms of, I think from our experience and modest experience, I think the main driver for development in any country beyond the involvement of investors, first and foremost, is the political will. And I think we see that it's more and more political will from the highest level of the government, because without this political will, we cannot develop the projects. Not only the political will, that's why I separated the political will from the political commitment. So you can have political will, but again, when you see the budget, the national budget, how we measure the political commitments is the budget, national budget, to see if there is a clear indication in the budget. The skills that are put in at work for the projects. And I think there is more and more structure that are either in Côte d'Ivoire, for example, where there is large expertise, for example, with Côte d'Ivoire Énergie, CIE, and there is a very good institutional framework. Also in Nigeria and many other countries, that we see more and more that there is this political will is going to become a political commitment with the right institutions and the right level of engagement. I think in West Africa is not lacking entrepreneurial skills, and my colleagues and the intervenants, I think, will confirm that. From our experience, we see that there is more and more, there is a lot of entrepreneurial skills in the markets. One fundamental reason is that there is the market fundamentals are sound and are good, especially for solar and wind. You know, we're talking about West Africa. There is a potential for wind, for hydro, and for solar, but I think the largest potential is by far is solar. And I think the region is largely they've devoid the large solar resources. And as you know, the market costs of developing solar, especially from photovoltaic projects, are very competitive. And I think most countries, I think there is a great parity. Now, if we need to have more than energy, say we need capacity, so we need to have maybe storage capacity. I think storage technology are becoming more and more mature, and I think there is more market choices. But again, depends on the needs of the customers. For each of the countries, I think without going into specific countries, I think there is a more and more social transformation where there is a high pressure from population to get access to energy. And then, so this is driving the political commitment also in somehow. I think there is a long undefeatable support and commitment from international financial institutions. We see that with, for example, without, so maybe one of participants is from IFC or from World Bank in general, but I think World Bank and African Development Bank and all the DFIs are largely involved in the development of the renewable energy project in West Africa. And as I mentioned earlier, there is more and more local financing know-how, because we experienced that before. If not 100% of the project, they were only financed by DFIs. But I think more and more we can see that the local bank or local branches of international banks have the expertise or have the willingness also to get involved in the financing as a commercial financing of the project. So nevertheless, I think all those opportunities give us good hope for large development of renewable projects in West Africa. Nevertheless, I would like to mention some challenges that are remaining. And I think most of them are related to local content, local industrial know-how. I think as a project developer, I think sometimes we face in the lack of even if we would like to outsource some of the industrial works, where we find out ourselves in a lack of industrial basis. Local O&M, also as an African, I would like to see not only projects being developed and constructed, but also being managed and run by African and local capacity. I think there is a large room for capacity building and training, which as I mentioned earlier, it's some of the challenges that we might be facing is, without going in a specific country, I think permitting, fiscality, and logistics. Those, I think the country themselves need to address those issues, because they only add a risk. And as you know, as a developer or investor, once you don't have you don't have a clear visibility on your permitting, on your fiscality, and logistic costs of logistics, you just add a risk premium and just make your project costing higher. And I think most participants have already seen this picture in different conferences. I just want to remind ourselves that we still have a large way to go to make Africa empowered again and having its share in the development in this world. And also, as a background information, just to remind that this is the typical structure of production in Africa by country. And if you take the sum up of all this production, we have about a little bit than 670 terawatt hour a year, which is just around the consumption of a country like Germany. So the 54 countries in Africa are consuming a little bit less than Germany. So just to give you a way, the expansion needs for the market. So without going back in some known statistics in terms of electrifications, that's almost 600 million people in Africa are lacking access to electricity. But I think that we can be optimistic for a region like West Africa, given the recent development of the technology. So again,
I need you to finish, Nabil. That was a little bit more than 8 minutes already. So just giving you a few seconds to finish now. This is a nice slide.
Actually, that was my last slide. I just want to thank you again. So this is my contact information. If anyone need to contact me later on, I'll be happy to answer any question later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry to have to interrupt you. It's just we've gone over time a little bit, and I've just been contacted by Adedoyin Jean-Jacques, FYI, that he is going to have noise in the office later, so if he can present next. He has promised it's only going to be 8 minutes. So if you don't mind, Jean-Jacques, I'm just going to have Adedoyin next, and then I'll have you last. Adedoyin, can you please share your screen and then your presentation? I'm going to hold you to the 8 minutes just to make sure that also Jean-Jacques gets a chance. Thank you.
Right.
And you know, someone's mentioned here whether you guys are going to talk about a specific projects. So if you do have any specific projects, please can you talk about them? Thank you.
Thank you. I saw it. Thank you. Can you see my screen now? Yeah, great. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you're joining us from. Adedoyin is my name once again. Basically, I mean, just following up from what Nabil said, there are a lot of potentials in terms of renewable energy resources in Africa, particularly West Africa. I'll be focusing my presentation on, Nigeria. And I mean, probably as a background, you would like to have the information about the population, talking about the market. Nigeria has about 195,000 people, 195 million people. And the Energy Commission of Nigeria put the energy need of Nigeria to be around 31,000 megawatt in 2015. Yet all our installed capacity from all sources, gas and hydro, all of that, was at the top. I mean, the maximum was altogether they came up to 12,000. The available capacity is 7,000 megawatt, and what goes onto the grid is 5,000. So comparing 31,000 megawatt need as of 2015, because by now it should have increased, but we don't have the available data. Now, comparing 31,000 with 5,000, that tells you that there is a huge energy gap that needs to be filled. And the government and all other stakeholders, including the government partners, have been trying to sort this out. But so you understand this, because when we say megawatt, let's put it in plain terms that a layman will understand. This means that electricity access in Nigeria is 54%. That's on national level. At the rural community, only 28% have access to electricity. What does this mean? In rural Nigeria, 73 million people do not have access to electricity. In urban centers, we have 17 million people that do not have access at all. And access is different from reliability. Because, okay, of all these people that have access to electricity, what percentage of them, how well do they enjoy this electricity? Studies show that averagely, of course, there are places that have more and some have less, but averagely, most people enjoy electricity for 6 hours a day. So the use of private generators is rampant, both with industries and also at the residential level. And of course, because of the huge cost, no matter what we say, one of the things that people talk about in terms of adoption of renewable technology is the fact that the high installation costs. yes, the high installation cost is there, but the cost that the people expend on private generators is more than the cost they will expend on renewable energy systems. I will go specific about some of the one or two technologies soon. And of course, when you come to urban center, there's always noise. It's still like Lagos in Nigeria, because even in the evening, because everybody is putting on generator because there's no light. Of course, there's also the climate change issues. So I'm just trying to interpret what the energy gap means. Now, but despite all this huge energy gap, we have a lot of resources, a lot of renewable energy resources. Talking about solar, look at the map. There's almost no state that doesn't have one or two resources that can be exploited in terms of renewable energy systems. Beyond this, if you look at, let me give specific look at the River State here, it doesn't show any potential for solar, because you don't see the yellow, because the yellow mark shows solar. And I tell you, the first major project that became very popular, mini grid projects in Nigeria, came from this state, and it's still running till date. So that shows that even what you have here on the map is not even as comprehensive enough. There are a number of other resources. And for large hydro, we have potential for, I'm going to show later in a slide, about 11,000 megawatt of large hydro potential that have not been exploited. And also, some have been exploited, but I'll give a figure. Then small hydro up to 7,034 megawatt. So, and all this together running close to about 13,000. All the total installed capacity of hydro power project in Nigeria is still less than 2,000. We have wind in some specific areas, but I mean, we also have biomass. But solar energy, I will agree with Nabil on this, that solar energy represents the highest potential in terms of renewable energy potential in Africa. Now, talking about the political will, I mean, I like the point they mentioned about political will and political commitment. I love that. Now, but talking about the political will, I want to look at this and I'll point to some figures. Now, as of the Nigeria plan to have, in the short term, everywhere you see short term here, it ends 2015. It was between 2013 and 2015. And Nigerian plan to have altogether 600 megawatt of solar electricity alone. I mean, solar power, solar installation alone, including solar thermal and solar, you see here, solar thermal supposed to be 300 and solar PV into various applications. Sorry, I need to, okay. So now, but all together, so we're by 2015, this is 2018, we're supposed to have 600 megawatt. All together till now, all that we have as of 2015 is 28 megawatt. That's the most optimistic. Estimation. Now, but if you look around the country, all around I mean, you can see this in the Renewable Energy Master Plan. So I'm having a little challenge with my screen. Okay, I think I can move it around now. I'm sorry about this. Okay. Yeah, there is also the medium term, which is to 2020 and 2030. That's the long term. But when you look at this, in almost all the states of the country, sorry, I think there is a little challenge in my screen. Almost all the states of the country, about 60% of the states in the country have less than 50% electrification rates. Almost all the states, you can look at some of them. So, I mean, the red is about the estimated, and the blue one talk about the statistics that was taken, raw data, which are very close. So, and I must tell you, like I said before, solar energy potential is very huge and it works everywhere in the country. And that's why the Nigerian government and other stakeholders are in the country, including GIZ, USAID, are really supporting solar energy uptake. And looking at all of these figures together, looking at the energy potential, the energy resources, and the huge gap, that tells you there is a huge market. And not just the market, there is effective demand. What do I mean? Not just demand that people have interest, but they are willing to pay. These studies have confirmed. I've also been involved in projects where we went to the field and interviewed people and had stories, and people are willing to pay and are capable of paying. The only thing is who is going to invest. Now, in this, I mean, like for instance, Nigeria currently, there is close to 30 sites that have been identified that has huge and bankable hydropower projects, including large hydro. For instance, there is the Mambila project that they're working on now. There is potential in Makurdi up to 60,000 megawatt, and there are as small as 30 megawatts somewhere in the southwest. So this tells us that, I mean, there is a market, there is a potential. Now, coming to solar, the way I describe solar is simply that it's more than a need, because of its plug and play kind of technology, is quite easy to adopt. It's one of the fastest way of reaching the mostly unreached people and underserved. So if you look at this map, where you see green, what the government did, this is a document, this is a chart from the government, shows that yes, government will be making an effort to extend the grid, but in the short term, there is no way they can cover some places with the economics and the geography. So they have identified some spots where the fastest and the most bankable way of getting across to them, reaching them with electricity, is by mini grid. And I'll tell you why government is, everybody's supporting mini grid currently, because apart from the grid extension, they also want to be sure that if we provide electricity to them, it's not just to light up, just for electricity access, but they want to be sure that there is productive use of energy, particularly in the rural community. So mini grid as they identify as a means of addressing this. Therefore, the government is really, really supporting this. That'll be the last slide I'm going to present to talk about some of these things. And currently, there are a number of projects ongoing. Recently, the German agency in Nigeria supported about 5 mini grids in Nigeria. I think 4 of them have been commissioned recently. So, these things are working. People are willing to pay, and of course, they support the agency supports private sector, private organizations, and then they implement the projects. So, and the people are paying back by tariff. So it's a very bankable project. Now, talking about the business case, there are a few models that I've observed that work in Nigeria. For instance, the most popular one is the pay-as-you-go, because one of the issues that people have always had with going for renewable technology, for instance, solar PV, is that, oh, yes.
Just to let you know, a few minutes, 2 minutes, and you have to finish, just because you've also been like 12 minutes, and we just need to leave some time for Jean-Jacques.
Okay. Pay-as-you-go, people have challenges, especially SMEs and household, at the residential level. They have challenges to giving the money all at once to buy this system. So what a number of organizations now do is they supply the household, and then they pay some initial cost, and then they begin to pay the rest, probably monthly and things like that. And this has been working for residential and businesses. That tells you that it works both in the urban and the rural center. For instance, the MTN Lumos has distributed over 100,000 solar home systems. There is A7 has distributed about 20,000. GV project, a number of like that. And as part of government support, there are, I can share document on this. The government has set up support schemes in terms of tax-free for imports, and then rebate for organizations that even are going to use renewable energy sources as part of their energy mix. And currently, the government is supporting local investors up to about 50% grants for solar home system. Like this, but for the mini grid, this will be my last slide. Government of Nigeria is very particular about the mini grid systems developing mini grid in Nigeria. And recently, I think last year, by May, they launched a regulation because one of the challenges, if I want to invest in mini grid system, how am I sure about the safety of my investment? What happens if the distribution company extend the grid to the area I'm covering within the next short time before I recoup my money? Therefore, there is this mini grid regulation that the government launched last year, and the aim is to incentivize and simplify market entrance by private investors, and to let them know, okay, what will happen to your project if I mean, just to provide a coverage for them and cover licensing, tariff, and technical standards. I can share document on this. And let me just give you a brief, and this is my last slide, actually. Now, mini grid is classified to 3, and basically 2, less than up to 100 kilowatt and up to 1,000, between 100 and 1,000 kilowatt, that's 1 megawatt. Now, for less than 100 kilowatts, the developer has 2 options. Either to register it, you can just register with the government, and that will just be to notify the government, and that you can do online. It's not difficult at all. But standard will not be enforced. The only, and then you don't have to, sorry, okay, 1 minute. Standard will not be enforced, and then it's based on agreement. The tariff and everything is based on agreement between the operator, that's the developer, and that is the investor, and the customers, just 60% of the community. And you just submit the document to the Regulatory Commission. But the challenge with that, okay.
Seriously, 30 seconds, that's it.
Okay, but there is a permit holder. That is the people that the government permits. For the registered ones, if the distribution company extends the grid to the region within extend the grid to the region you are covering, then there is no compensation. But for the permit holder, less than 100 kilowatts, you'll be covered. There will be a tripartite agreement before you even go into the project. And then you have to, but to be sure of that, you have to ensure some technical code and standard, and then the project has to be approved with the permits from the Regulatory Commission. But lastly, the tariff for any of this is not determined nationally because it has to be cost reflective of the investment. And what is very encouraging about it is that when you apply for this permit in 30 days, based on the ease of doing business executive order, which came later on, the permit is issued in just 30 days. So I think currently Nigeria is a very good place to invest in terms of renewable energy development in Nigeria. And I mean, I'll be willing to probably link up and then support anybody interested in investing in renewable energy and also to know more about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adedoyin. I never imagined you guys, we actually have now 10 minutes left, so I don't know if we're gonna have time for Q&As, but at least you guys are doing a really good job answering them live. So, I mean, by text. Jean-Jacques, your turn. Please share your screen. Actually, Adedoyin, can you stop sharing your screen so that Jean-Jacques can share his? Great, thank you very much. Go ahead, Jean-Jacques. Can you just say something to me to make sure we can hear you?
You can hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, everybody. I'm Jean-Jacques, managing partner of Final Green, a financial advisory company focused on renewable energy. So let me try to move. Okay. So as I was saying, Final Green is a financial advisory company focused on renewable energy. We have 5 offices across the world in doing that business only on renewable energy, any kind of technology, solar, biomass, hydro, wind, and any project related to energy transition. So we provide merger M&A advisory, project finance advisory, and strategic advisory. We can start from scratch with any project. We can come at the end of the development of any project. I think all the other panelists had said a lot of things, very, very important things, and I don't want to say again what they thought, but everything is true. It's not easy to start to do a project in Africa, especially in the renewable energy space. I will try to be quick and more concise about renewable energy in Africa and the final green point of view. So we are advising a couple of projects, and so I don't want to talk a lot about that. So when we say renewable energy in West Africa, everybody have to know that renewable energy is quite new here in that area. I think everything starts after the COP21 in Paris, where the government, African government, took some engagement to increase the energy mix. That means maybe putting some incentive on the renewable energy space, and maybe attract international developer, investor in the renewable energy space. So things, as Nabil was saying, things are moving in the right path, but it's taking some time, you know. And when we talk about West Africa, we talk about 18 countries overall, and saying that it's 18 different countries with different renewable energy opportunities. For some countries, we will have more PV projects. For other one, we will have more hydro. For some other, you will have more off-grid opportunities, depending of the country, of the maturity of the country, of the legislation, of the grid, capabilities. You will have different opportunity in West Africa. Adedoyin was talking about Nigeria. We talk about a country of 180 million people with different characteristics and a different kind of opportunity. Any project in Nigeria is very huge, and a huge project in Nigeria, it's a huge project for Senegal. So we have to keep that in mind. So if we focus PV market in West Africa, I think about the hydro power projects that is quite normal in West Africa. PV is quite new, and some countries benefit from very good natural resources in terms of maybe sun exposition. And I mean Senegal, Burkina Faso, Mali, you know, and other countries are trying to going fast on the PV market. The most advanced is Senegal, where you have a lot of projects, about four project commission, and I think you will have 4 or 6 other one on construction commission this year. And it's one of the more advanced countries, and you have some projects in Burkina Faso as well. One will be commissioned last month, and you have some projects in Mali as well, because it's a country maybe with a good potential for solar PV. If you want to do, for instance, hydro projects in that country, it might be challenging, maybe to find a bankable project. In terms of development, project development, I think the way the market was working in West Africa is changing now, because more and more government countries are launching a kind of tender process. Because before that, it was a kind of direct agreement between developers and the state. But now we are working more on the tender process. I mean, the IFC program scaling solar. You have government like Ivory Coast or Burkina Faso who launch their own tender process. It's quite competitive. It's quite benefit for the government and for the developer as well. And but as Nabil was saying, it will remain a lot of challenges. Land tenure, PPA tariff negotiation, the quality of the off-takers, and the way we do project financing in West Africa. As I was saying, there is a couple of projects that have been commissioned in the PV market in West Africa. You can see you have 3 in Senegal. I think you have a 4th in Senegal now, and you have one in Burkina Faso. And this is the kind of utility scale projects connected to the grid. But you have a lot of projects in development ongoing. Saying that, as I was saying, the trend is more on about doing a kind of tender process in all countries. In Ivory Coast, you can see the PV project come soon. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Senegal as well. And the PV market is growing fast in that country, but not in other countries, because you could have some challenges regarding the grid capability, maybe to inject the solar project. But apart that, you can do other kind of renewable energy. For instance, in Ivory Coast, the country is well mature in terms of hydro projects and biomass projects, where you have a lot of developers. In Guinea, you have a good hydro potential, less solar but more hydro. In Nigeria, you have both. You have a lot of upgrade opportunities, because it doesn't make sense to do only maybe project connected to the grid. And when I say that the market is quite bullish. We all know that West Africa needs energy, and we need to keep in mind that there is some barrier, but there are some market trends, and it remains some barrier in terms of market trends. As most of the grid in many countries are very overloaded. I think the trend now is to develop off-grid rural electrification projects with the pay-as-you-go solution, the mini-grid. There is a lot of opportunity for C&I, commercial and industrial projects. You know, the one maybe building a project for a mining or commercial center directly or something like that. There is a lot of huge opportunity of that. And the main barrier is that, as I was saying, the market is not mature, and the project finance in West Africa is quite new, and we need to increase the local banking capability and government capabilities, and financing will remain difficult, and we need to work mainly on those aspects in order to maybe go more faster in the renewable energy market in West Africa.
Thank you very much, Jean-Jacques. Unfortunately, it is now 1 minute to 2:00, so we don't actually have the time to get through any of the questions and answers, which is a real shame, but you know, this is sort of the way it works sometimes when we're live. I'd like to thank you very much, each of the speakers. Thank you very much, Nabil, for your time. Thank you very much, Adedoyin and Jean-Jacques, for sharing your presentations. For the guys that are out there in the audience, please feel free. All three speakers have given their email address. If you have any questions or anything extra, if you'd like to contact them. If you need an introduction, let us know. We'll be happy to introduce you. And so you know, we're holding this on West Africa today, and we're holding one on East Africa tomorrow. If you're interested in that, then join us. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the next option. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.